Barry Sanders, 2,628 rushing yards in a season. This isn't just a college football record. It's one of the greatest athletic feats in American sports history. In 1988, Barry Sanders wasn't just a running back. He was a human cheat code. Playing for Oklahoma State, he shattered every expectation, every defensive scheme, and every record book in sight. And he did it as a junior in just 11 games. Here's the thing that makes this record almost mythical. He was a backup the year before. Thurman Thomas, a future NFL Hall of Famer, was the starter, and Barry quietly waited behind him. Then 1988 arrived, and the quiet kid from Wichita, Kansas, exploded into the national spotlight. In just 11 regular season games, Barry Sanders rushed for 2,628 yards, averaging almost 240 rushing yards per game. If you include his bowl game, the total jumps to 2,850 yards. But the raw numbers don't even tell the whole story. He wasn't running through massive holes untouched. He was juking entire defenses out of their shoes, making 3 guys miss in a 5-yard window, and hitting top speed in 2 steps. His change of direction looked like something out of a video game. He also scored 37 total touchdowns, again in just 11 games, and won the Heisman Trophy in a runaway vote, even though most of the country barely saw him on TV. In today's media era, Barry would have broken the internet every weekend. Since then, no one has come close. Perine, 427 rushing yards in a game. On November 22, 2014, just 1 week after Melvin Gordon broke the single-game rushing record with 408 yards, Oklahoma's Perine went out and casually destroyed it. He was just a true freshman, 19 years old, built like a truck, but still new to college football. And that day against Kansas, the conditions were ugly. A game that screamed run the ball, and Oklahoma did, over and over. Perine carried the ball 34 times and turned that into 427 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. What made it so unbelievable wasn't just the number, it was how easily he did it. The Kansas defense had 0 answers. At 5'11" and 235 pounds, Perine ran with a mix of power and patience. It looked like a high school varsity player scrimmaging against a junior varsity team. And here's the craziest part. He broke the record with 12 minutes still left in the 4th quarter. After his 5th touchdown run, a 42-yard explosion, they pulled him from the game. No need to chase more. He had already done enough to rewrite college football history. Georgia Tech, 222-0 win over Cumberland, 1916. This isn't just a college football record. It's the most lopsided game in the history of the sport. In 1916, Georgia Tech defeated Cumberland College by a score of 222-0. It remains the largest margin of victory ever recorded in college football. And it happened under circumstances that will never be repeated. The game was scheduled as part of a pre-existing contract. Cumberland had already disbanded its football team earlier that year, but canceling would have come with a $3,000 penalty. So instead, they sent a last-minute group of students, most of whom had never played organized football. Georgia Tech, meanwhile, was coached by John Heisman and considered one of the strongest programs in the country. They ran a fast, physical offense and had no intention of slowing down. By halftime, the score was 126-0. Georgia Tech scored on nearly every possession and finished the game with 32 rushing touchdowns, over 900 total yards, and 0 pass attempts. Cumberland finished with negative rushing yards, 15 turnovers, and no first downs. The game was a mismatch in every possible way, and it set a record that's never come close to being challenged. Modern rules now prevent games like this from happening. Programs have stricter scheduling, better oversight, and mercy rules in place. A score this one-sided isn't just unlikely, it's impossible in today's game. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. Case Keenum, 19,217 career passing yards. From 2006 to 2011, Case Keenum threw for 19,217 yards at the University of Houston, the most passing yards in NCAA history. No one before or since has come close. Keenum wasn't some 5-star recruit from a powerhouse program. He was a lightly regarded prospect from Abilene, Texas, who redshirted his freshman year and earned his way onto the field. But once he took over, he never looked back. He played in an offense that fully embraced the air raid philosophy, fast tempo, spread formations, and constant pressure on opposing secondaries. But the numbers weren't just about the system. Keenum had elite anticipation, touch, and an incredible football IQ. He could read defenses in real time and deliver strikes to every part of the field. And it wasn't a one-year explosion. He put up massive yardage season after season. Even after tearing his ACL early in 2010, he came back in 2011 and threw for over 5,600 yards in his final season, at age 23, after being granted a medical redshirt. Across his 6-year career, Keenum threw for over 300 yards in 39 different games and surpassed 500 yards 10 times. His consistency was unreal. Even in today's era of pass-heavy systems, longer seasons, and elite quarterback talent, nobody's touched that number. Not Patrick Mahomes, not Joe Burrow, not even Bryce Young or Caleb Williams. Because to break Keenum's record, you'd need a rare mix of opportunity, health, and elite performance every single week for 5 straight years. Keenan Reynolds, 88 career rushing touchdowns. This isn't just a quarterback record. It's one of the most quietly dominant careers in college football history. From 2012 to 2015, Keenan Reynolds rushed for 88 touchdowns as the starting quarterback for Navy, the most in FBS history. Not by a running back, by a quarterback running the triple option. In an era defined by spread offenses and Heisman-level passers, Reynolds carved his own lane at a service academy that doesn't get the spotlight, but he made history anyway. Navy ran a strict option system, no gimmicks, no air raid, just tough, physical, assignment-based football. And Reynolds was the engine. He made the reads, took the hits, and turned broken plays into touchdowns. Over 4 seasons, he racked up over 4,500 rushing yards and became the face of Navy football in the modern era. His 88 career rushing touchdowns broke the previous record held by Monte Ball, and it still stands untouched. No quarterback has come close. Most don't even get enough carries, and most schools don't run anything close to Navy's system. Reynolds finished his career with 31 wins as a starter, multiple top 25 finishes, and legendary performances against Army, Notre Dame, and Pitt. And despite never being a Heisman finalist, he left with a stat line that may never be matched again. Because to break 88 rushing touchdowns, you'd need a 4-year starter who never gets hurt, plays in an option-heavy system, and scores 2 touchdowns almost every game. That player doesn't exist right now, and might not ever again. David Klinger, 11 passing touchdowns in a single game. In 1990, Houston quarterback David Klinger threw 11 touchdown passes in one game against Eastern Washington. That number still stands as the most passing touchdowns in a single FBS game, and it was no accident. At the time, Houston was running one of the most aggressive passing offenses in the country, under head coach John Jenkins. It was a continuation of the run-and-shoot system that had already helped Andre Ware win the Heisman the year before. Klinger inherited the keys to a Ferrari, and he drove it like no one before him. Eastern Washington was an FCS opponent, and Houston didn't hold back. He finished the game with 41 completions for 572 yards, and those 11 touchdowns weren't cheap. They came on designed plays, executed at full speed. The record wasn't a fluke. Klinger would go on to throw 54 touchdown passes that season, setting the single-season record at the time. He was part of a revolution in offensive football, one that made defenses rethink how to cover the field. And yet, more than 3 decades later, 11 touchdowns in a game still hasn't been matched. In today's game, teams rotate quarterbacks more often. Blowouts lead to backups playing the second half. And even the most explosive offenses tend to balance things out, which means Klinger's record isn't just old. It's untouchable. Patrick Mahomes, 819 total yards in a loss. This isn't just a record, it's a paradox. In 2016, Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes accounted for 819 yards of total offense in a single game. That's the most ever by one player in FBS history. And somehow, they lost. The game was against Oklahoma in one of the wildest shootouts college football has ever seen. Final score, 66-59, Sooners win. But what Mahomes did that night was otherworldly. He threw for 734 yards, tying the FBS record for most passing yards in a game, and added another 85 yards on the ground. He touched the ball on nearly every play and was responsible for 5 touchdowns. And here's the kicker. He played through a shoulder injury. He was banged up, limping, and still launching 40-yard lasers off his back foot. Texas Tech ran over 100 plays. This was Mahomes before the MVPs and Super Bowl rings. Just a raw, fearless gunslinger trying to outscore everyone in sight. And while offensive numbers have exploded in recent years, no one's come close to 819 yards in a single game. Brandon West, 7,764 career all-purpose yards. From 2006 to 2009, Brandon West racked up 7,764 all-purpose yards at Western Michigan, the most in NCAA history. That includes rushing, receiving, punt returns, and kick returns. If there was a way to touch the football, West did it. He wasn't playing on a national title contender. He didn't have primetime TV slots or Heisman buzz, but every single game he chipped away at history. West was a true Swiss Army knife. As a running back, he rushed for over 1,000 yards in 3 different seasons. As a return man, he was one of the most dangerous weapons in the country, constantly flipping field position and breaking long runs. And as a receiver out of the backfield, he added another layer of production. What made this record possible wasn't just talent, it was availability. West played in 49 games over 4 years, rarely missed time, and took on a massive workload from day one. He wasn't a stat patter, he was a workhorse. Since then, plenty of explosive players have come and gone. Some had bigger single seasons. Some had flashier highlight reels, but no one has matched West's total volume across all phases of the game. Because to break this record, a player needs to do everything for 4 straight years without missing a beat. And in today's game, where star players sit out bowl games, transfer, or head to the draft early, that kind of consistency is almost extinct. Nile Kinnick, only Heisman winner to die in World War II. In 1939, Nile Kinnick won the Heisman Trophy as a halfback for the University of Iowa. That season, he became a national symbol of excellence, both on and off the field. He wasn't just a great player, he was a scholar, a student body president, and a public speaker with a powerful presence. In his Heisman acceptance speech, he famously said, "I thank God I was born to the gridirons of the Midwest and not to the battlefields of Europe." Less than 2 years later, he was training to serve in World War II. After graduating, Kinnick joined the U.S. Navy and became a fighter pilot. In 1943, during a routine training flight off the coast of Venezuela, his plane developed engine trouble. Rather than risk crashing into the carrier and endangering others, he attempted an emergency sea landing. He didn't survive. At just 24 years old, Nile Kinnick became the only Heisman winner to die in World War II. His legacy extended far beyond football. Today, Iowa's football stadium is named Kinnick Stadium in his honor. His name lives on not because of how many touchdowns he scored, but because of the life he lived and the sacrifice he made. Tom Harmon, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and everything else. In 1939, Tom Harmon, the original superstar from the University of Michigan, put together a game that still doesn't seem real. Against Ohio State, in the final game of his college career, he scored 5 total touchdowns, intercepted 3 passes, punted, kicked extra points, and even handled kickoff duties. He wasn't just playing multiple positions, he was dominating them. On offense, Harmon ran for 3 touchdowns and threw for 2 more. On defense, he was a ball hawk, picking off 3 passes and shutting down the Buckeyes' air attack. On special teams, he did everything except sell popcorn at halftime. It was the kind of game you'd expect from a myth, not a real person. But Harmon was the real deal. That 1939 season, he led the nation in scoring, total offense, and all-purpose yards. He won the Heisman the following year in 1940 and was widely considered the most complete player of his era. No one has put together a game like that since. Because in modern football, players are specialized. A quarterback doesn't play safety. A running back doesn't kick. That's why no one will ever reach it again. Buffalo, 6 rushing touchdowns in a single quarter, 2020. This isn't a record from the early days of college football. It happened recently, and it happened fast. In 2020, the University at Buffalo scored 6 rushing touchdowns in a single quarter against Kent State. All 6 were scored by one player, Jarrett Patterson. It was one of the most dominant 15-minute stretches in the history of the sport. Buffalo ran a ground-heavy offense, and Patterson was their star. But what he did in the second quarter of that game was something else entirely. The offensive line opened lanes, and Patterson exploded through them. Kent State had no answer. By halftime, Patterson had already tied the record. By the end of the game, he had rushed for 409 yards and 8 touchdowns, tying the all-time single-game rushing TD record. But it was that second quarter, 6 touchdowns in just one quarter of play, that stamped his name in the record books. No other team has ever rushed for more in that span, and with the way modern coaches manage reps, rest players, and ease off in lopsided games, it's hard to imagine this record falling. Donnel Pumphrey, 6,405 career rushing yards. From 2013 to 2016, San Diego State's Donnel Pumphrey rushed for 6,405 yards, the most in FBS history. That number puts him above legends like Herschel Walker, Ron Dane, Ricky Williams, and LaDainian Tomlinson. And yet, Pumphrey's name rarely comes up in the conversation of all-time greats. But the numbers don't lie. He wasn't the biggest or the fastest. At just 5 feet 9 inches, 170 pounds, he didn't look like the kind of player who could carry the ball 300 times a year. But he did, year after year, and turned in production that no one could match. Pumphrey rushed for over 1,800 yards in back-to-back seasons, finishing with 2,133 as a senior. He also added over 1,000 receiving and return yards in his career, showing off his versatility as an all-purpose weapon. He wasn't just racking up yardage against weak competition either. He torched Power 5 defenses in bowl games, delivered in conference championships, and carried San Diego State to multiple double-digit win seasons. He knew how to set up blocks, find cutback lanes, and slip through tight spaces. Plenty of backs have had big seasons, but almost none have stayed healthy, stayed consistent, and stayed dominant for 4 full years. In today's game, most elite backs leave for the NFL early. Others split carries. And very few ever get the opportunity to chase 6,000-plus yards. Bailey Zappe, 62 passing touchdowns in a single season. This isn't just a record-breaking season, it's the greatest statistical passing year college football has ever seen. In 2021, Bailey Zappe threw 62 touchdown passes at Western Kentucky, the most in FBS history. He broke Joe Burrow's record of 60, which had stood since LSU's historic 2019 season, and Zappe did it in just 1 year at the FBS level. Before that, he spent 3 years lighting up defenses at Houston Baptist, an FCS program. When he transferred to Western Kentucky, he brought his offensive coordinator, Zach Kittley, with him, and the results were instant. Zappe ran a lightning-fast air raid-style offense that leaned into his strengths. Every possession felt like a 2-minute drill. Every throw had purpose. He finished the season with 5,967 passing yards, another FBS record, and 62 touchdowns in 14 games, including 6 in the bowl game that pushed him past Burrow's mark. But Zappe wasn't just padding stats. He was sharp, efficient, and almost impossible to throw off rhythm. And while offenses today are more pass-friendly than ever, no one has reached 62 since. To break Zappe's record, you'd need the perfect quarterback, the perfect scheme, and a team willing to throw from week 1 through the bowl game, without slowing down. That combination may not come around again for a long time. Howard Griffith, 8 rushing touchdowns in a single game. This isn't just a single-game explosion. It's a record that stood for over 30 years, untouched by every great running back since. In 1990, Illinois fullback Howard Griffith scored 8 rushing touchdowns in a single game against Southern Illinois. It remains the most ever by one player in FBS history. And what makes this record even more shocking? Griffith wasn't the featured tailback. He wasn't known for speed or highlight runs. He was a fullback, built for power, short yardage, and blocking. But that day, he was unstoppable. Illinois dominated the line of scrimmage, and Griffith kept finishing drives, goal line plunges, short bursts, and punishing runs between the tackles. He finished the game with 21 carries for 208 yards and 8 touchdowns, averaging nearly 10 yards per carry. He didn't need 40 touches. He made every single one count. Since then, several players have scored 7 rushing touchdowns in a game, but no one has reached more than 8. Coaches pull starters early, teams balance touches, and blowouts rarely last long enough to push a player that far. That's what makes Griffith's record so tough to break. Florida State, 14 consecutive top 5 finishes. From 1987 to 2000, Florida State finished in the AP top 5 every single season. That's 14 years in a row, a level of dominance that no other program has matched before or since. It was the golden era of Seminole football, and it was built under one man, Bobby Bowden. With Bowden at the helm, Florida State became a machine, reloading every year with future NFL stars, competing for national titles, and winning almost every game that mattered. This streak wasn't built on soft schedules or conference mismatches. Florida State played anyone, anywhere, from Miami and Florida to bowl games against top-ranked teams. And they didn't just survive, they thrived. From 1987 through 2000, they went 152-19. They won 9 ACC titles, made 5 national championship game appearances, and captured 2 national titles in 1993 and 1999. The 1999 team even went undefeated. Wire to wire ranked number 1 from preseason to national champions. Every college football powerhouse has had its moment, but none have sustained it like Florida State did for over a decade. Derek Thomas, 27 sacks in a single season. In 1988, Alabama linebacker Derek Thomas recorded 27 sacks in a single season. That's the most in FBS history, and it's not even close. Thomas wasn't just fast. He was explosive off the edge, with a first step that made offensive tackles panic. He had perfect timing, elite bend, and an unstoppable motor. Every snap, he was in the quarterback's face before the play could develop. And this wasn't in some pass-happy era either. In the late 80s, college teams ran the ball far more than they passed. Offenses were slower, more physical, and still, Thomas lived in the backfield. He had multiple games with 4 or more sacks, including a 5-sack performance against Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. And even when he wasn't bringing quarterbacks down, he was altering plays, forcing fumbles, blowing up blocking schemes, and setting the tone from the first quarter on. Today, the game is faster, quarterbacks get rid of the ball quicker, and defensive rotations limit snap counts. Even elite pass rushers rarely hit 15 sacks in a season. To get near 27, you'd need dominance, durability, and a scheme built entirely around one man. Derek Thomas had all of it, and used it to perfection. Oklahoma, 47 game-winning streak. From 1953 to 1957, the University of Oklahoma won 47 straight games under head coach Bud Wilkinson. That's 4 full seasons without a single loss, across multiple rosters, multiple quarterbacks, and dozens of ranked opponents. And they didn't just scrape by, they dominated. Oklahoma outscored teams by an average of 30-plus points, shut out opponents regularly, and controlled every game with a brutal mix of discipline and physicality. Wilkinson's teams ran the split T offense with surgical precision and played suffocating defense. They weren't flashy, they were flawless. During the streak, they won 3 national championships, produced multiple All-Americans, and built the foundation for Oklahoma's powerhouse reputation. But what makes this streak unbreakable today is the structure of modern college football. Today's game is built for chaos, with conference championship games, playoff systems, early draft departures, and constant media pressure. Even the best programs slip up. Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. None have come close to 47 in a row. You need elite talent. You need coaching consistency. You need luck with injuries. And you have to win every week for over 3 years. John Reeves, 9 interceptions in a single game. This isn't a highlight. It's a low point that's never been matched, and likely never will be. In 1969, Florida quarterback John Reeves threw 9 interceptions in a single game against Auburn. That's the most ever by one player in an FBS game, and it still stands over 50 years later. Reeves was just a sophomore at the time, and a talented one. He went on to become the SEC's all-time passing leader and had a long pro career. But on that day, everything went wrong. Florida trailed early and got one-dimensional fast. Reeves kept throwing, and Auburn kept picking him off. The Tigers' defense knew exactly what was coming, and they took full advantage, forcing mistake after mistake with aggressive coverage and pressure. By the end, Reeves had thrown for over 400 yards, but those 9 interceptions overshadowed everything. In today's game, this kind of performance would never happen. Coaches would pull the quarterback after 3 or 4 picks. Teams rotate faster, manage optics, and protect players from spiraling mid-game. But back then, starters stayed in. Quarterbacks played through it, and that's why Reeves's 9-interception game is so unique and so unlikely to be repeated. Texas Tech versus Centenary, 77 combined punts in a single game. This isn't just a weird stat, it's the strangest game in college football history. In 1939, Texas Tech and Centenary combined for 77 punts in a single game. That's the most ever recorded, and nothing else even comes close. It wasn't a defensive slugfest, it was a weather nightmare. The game was played in a torrential downpour in Shreveport, Louisiana. The field was completely waterlogged. Offenses couldn't move the ball, passes were nearly impossible, and footing was a mess. So both teams resorted to punting, over and over again, hoping to flip field position and force a turnover. Centenary punted every single time they had the ball. 31 of their 33 punts came on first down. It was pure survival football. Texas Tech wasn't much different. They punted 36 times themselves. In total, the ball was punted more than once per minute of game time. Neither team reached the end zone. The final score was 0-0. You'll never see a game like it again. Andre Ware, 517 passing yards in one half. In 1989, Houston quarterback Andre Ware threw for 517 yards in the first half against SMU. Not the game, the first half. No one has ever thrown for more in a single half at the FBS level. Ware was running the run-and-shoot offense under head coach Jack Pardee, a system built for speed, space, and aggression. And Ware executed it perfectly. He spread the field, hit every receiver in stride, and kept the tempo so fast that SMU's defense never had time to recover. By the end of 2 quarters, Ware had racked up 5 touchdown passes and over 500 yards. Then sat the entire second half. He didn't need to come back in. The damage was done. That season, Ware went on to win the Heisman Trophy, and his Houston offense set records across the board. Even in today's pass-heavy era, with more plays, more possessions, and higher-scoring games, no quarterback has thrown for more in a single half. And most coaches don't let their starters play long enough to even try. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.